Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. So today we're going to talk about getting started with sublimation and some of the supplies that you want to have and keep on hand. So I know I have several people that are just diving into sublimation, so I thought this video might be helpful to get you started and know like exactly what you're getting into and maybe some of the things that might help along your journey. So first of all, to get into sublimation, we're going to need something to print. So you'll need a sublimation printer. So this one is an Epson EcoTank printer and it is intended for inkjet printing, but I converted it to be a sublimation printer. And I will link to the video below where I did that. And I used sublimation ink, which is the next supply you'll need to do that. And I used this Hippo sublimation ink. I will link to that below as well. And it's in the first video about converting the printer. So this is the ink I use, as well as the printer that I use to print all my sublimation prints. You will also need sublimation paper to print your sublimation designs on. I actually did a video comparing various sublimation papers and I'll link to that below as well. This is one that I like, which is A-Sub. Printer's Jack is another one. I would basically do like between those two, whichever's on sale, whichever you can find. So next up, you have your sublimation printer and you're ready to print, but you need something to make. And that's where blanks come in. So blanks are what you can do sublimation on. And what you're looking for is things that say that they are sublimation blanks and that they have a polyester coating. So that can be anything. This is kind of a plastic. This is a glass mug. It has a sublimation coating on it. Down here, I have some metal ornaments. So it can be metal, it can be slate, it can be fabric, like here's a pair of socks, here's a fabric zipper pouch. Most of the time you'll see sublimation blanks in either white or really light colors, but you can go a little bit darker. So here's a gray shirt. This is a Cricut Infusable Ink shirt, but polyester content shirts work fine. For shirts, I recommend at least 75% polyester content. For all these other items, I recommend you just look for something that says sublimation blanks specifically on the product that you're purchasing. Now, when you go with the darker shirt, like this gray, some of the gray will show through your design. So if you were to put yellow on this shirt, fairly light color, it would turn the color of that yellow, some of that gray would show through and it would change the color. So do note that when you pick a darker color on your blanks. Now, I went ahead and modified a blog post I have to a list of my favorite blanks because there are hundreds, thousands of blanks out there that you can use with your sublimation printer. And some of those, like this printer, I chose a small version to get me started, so it only prints 8.5 by 11. But you can go up and get sublimation printers at all price ranges and all sizes, so you can start going really large if you would like to, and that's where you can get into some of those larger size blanks. But I took my blog post and basically made it about my favorite blanks that are smaller in size will work with this size printer, and I'll link to that in the description below, because there's no way I could have, if I had all the sublimation blanks that I have in this craft room on this table, there wouldn't be room for any of the other stuff. So we'll head to that blog post and talk about the sublimation blanks. So while we're on that topic of blanks, something I do want you to consider is practicing. And for practice, I mean, you can just get like a practice cloth, like this is just sheets of material, and you can practice printing your item and then pressing onto fabric or whatever, not wasting that shirt that would be more expensive than just fabric. So I do recommend some kind of practice cloth. A little bit of practice when you first get started, knowing your material, that type of thing will really help you along the way. Now, so this side we have our sublimation printer. Let's talk about this other side where we have a heat press. So we are going to need some sort of heat to apply our sublimation print to our blank. You can use a heat press. An easy press will work. You can also use an oven, so a convection oven, like a one that you would have on your kitchen counter. It also works. I have videos on all of this. So I have a video comparing a heat press to an easy press. I have a video on which heat press to choose if you're convinced that you want a heat press for your sublimation. And I also have a video detailing the oven versus a mug press. So something like this I can do in the Cricut mug press, or I could buy wraps and do them in a oven. But I do recommend that you have a dedicated oven that lives in your craft room that is only for sublimation, because you don't want those gases on your food. So do buy that second oven, but I do have a video comparing those, and I'll link to all those videos below. Now, which of those ways is best? Which of those ways should I choose? Completely up to you, and where you are on your sublimation journey perhaps. So perhaps you want to start small, you know, maybe not the smallest easy press, but the larger 9x9, and you want to start there. See if you like it. And then one day you're like, boy, this heat press, larger heat press would make a great addition to this, and I really want to get that, so you move up. Definitely fine. So either way you want to do it, if you want to start small and move up, if you want to start with something larger right off, does not matter, but there are a wide variety of options out there. So I'll link to a ton of different videos below about some of the heating options, and you can make a decision if you haven't already. Now, if you have something already, like you already have the 9x9 Cricut Easy Press, start with that. See how much you like sublimation. I guarantee you're going to love it. And then you can move up from there. But if you already have something, just start wherever you are. So now we have the heat, and I did want to talk about heat resistant gloves. I do recommend that for sublimation. You're going to be pressing this stuff at like 400 degrees, sometimes maybe even more. And these things will get hot. So we're talking about pressing metal, slate, glass, ceramic, and it sucks that heat in and holds it for a long time. Heat resistant gloves will be your friend. And then something like this heat press, I always wear my heat resistant gloves so I don't burn myself like on that top heat plate. So those, I will link to those below as well as everything else. So now we have our ink, our printer, our heat press. What are some of the accessories you need to get started? So I definitely recommend a lint roller. This is the brand I use. It's just a Scotch-Brite Everyday Clean lint roller. I get them in bulk at Sam's. Works fine to me. I have heard some people having trouble with different brands of lint rollers, and some people recommend buying a lint roller that specifically says it's for hair and you'll have less issues. I don't have any issues, but if you do, you might try that. And then I also always keep a microfiber cloth on hand. So something like, so they make, like I said, there's all kinds of sublimation blanks. They make sublimatable puzzles, and for that I have a trouble with my lint roller because it wants to grab all the pieces, and you don't want that to happen. You want all the pieces to be together when you press it. So I use something like a microfiber cloth so it doesn't leave any bits and pieces on there because I'm trying to clean those off, and I just clean it with something like that. So you might want to keep one of those on hand as well. And then you will need heat tape. All right, I've got 3 different brands of heat tape here. I've been testing several different brands. These brands so far are pretty equal in my mind, so I wanted just to include them all. Cricut heat tape, the Artistry heat tape, and then this is the Condi heat tape. Now I do recommend some sort of tape dispenser, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of this, and something that's weighted at the bottom so you can pull the tape off one-handed and you don't have to have 2 hands. Both of these brands, Artistry and Cricut, are sized so they fit a regular everyday tape dispenser like you'd use in your office. So that is easier to find a tape dispenser to work if you have these. If you get the Condi version, it uses this large like industrial 3-inch size, so you would need to buy a special tape dispenser for it. All right, so now we can tape our sublimation print down. You will also need some type of protective paper to protect your heat press, to protect, like, to go in between your shirt, to protect, you know, the ink from getting on the back of your shirt, to protect the ink from just getting on anything. You don't want to get on anything except for what you're sublimating on. All right, a few different options you can go with. Butcher paper. Butcher paper you can find in bulk rolls at Sam's. You can order it in bulk rolls on Amazon. I like both options. I keep a bulk roll in my craft room. This is just a few pieces that are torn off. Artistry protective paper. This paper is made for sublimation and it is amazing. So if you want something that is intended for sublimation and made specifically for that purpose, this protective paper is what you want. Now, in a pinch, I don't have any butcher paper. I don't have any protective paper, what I would recommend is just like regular plain copy paper. I think that would be the best. And what I also like to keep on hand, and always white, what I also like to keep on hand is white cardstock. That heavier material with the cardstock is great for in between the layers of your shirt, underneath your project, like to protect your work surface, to protect the bottom of your heat press, whatever. So the heavier paper I would use on the bottom, not to lay over the top to protect. You want a thinner paper, butcher paper, or the artistry protective paper over that top portion. Then a lot of times you need some kind of pressing mat. So first of all, if you're using a heat press, of course it has a mat there. And you can cover it up for a lot of substrates, but some substrates, when you use them, you're going to need something additional. So first of all, if you're using the Cricut Easy Press, you'll need something to put underneath it. Easy Press mat works. Be sure to cover it up. You don't want to get any ink on the surface. For sublimation, I love this artistry mat. So it's like a 9x9 black, so any mistakes I make don't show up. And I always put some kind of protective paper over the top. So I usually use this when I'm working with my Easy Press and sublimation. I use the Cricut mat more for like HTV if I'm doing it with my Easy Press. So then other substrates, follow the directions, but you might see some that call for a rubber pad underneath your substrate, and that's what that looks like. And you might also see some that call for a Nomex pad, and that's what this is. So it's kind of like a foam material. It's basically what firefighter suits are made out of. This is really great as well if you get one of those ovens I talked about, like a convection oven. I would definitely recommend this on the inside on the rack, so you don't have hot spots on your rack. Now, a very common question I get when pressing shirts, other materials, you're pressing like with this heat press and it's putting quite a bit of pressure down, and or on the Easy Press and you're pressing down. And on polyester shirts, that can leave an outline wherever your iron or your Easy Press was located, right? So they sell, I like the rolls of foam. There are pressing pillows, different things like that. So if you buy the pressing pillows, you will need to buy one kind of for each size of shirt you're making. So you wouldn't use the same pressing pillow for a onesie as you would for a large, extra large adult shirt, if that makes sense. But if you buy this foam on the roll, you can just cut your pressing pad to the size you want. You just need to be sure to cover this material up with the protective paper. So I just take this roll, cut it to the size I need. So basically what you're looking for is a pressing surface that is larger than your design. So whatever design I print off my sublimation printer, it would be larger than that design, but it would be smaller than the shirt. And it would allow for that material to flex a little bit because it's soft and foam, and not create that crease line. So I highly recommend a roll of foam if you are having trouble with those crease lines and those polyester shirts. Once again, I'll link to all this below. All right, so we talked a little bit about the heat presses and the oven. Something that is really good to have on hand for sublimation is a thermometer. So in my oven, I have just oven thermometers so I can check the actual temperature. And then they also have thermometers that you can check your heat press with. Beware of like the infrared thermometers, because your heat press surface is reflective. Those aren't really accurate. So you do need a thermometer with a probe on it to check your heat press temperature. But that can be helpful, especially if you need to troubleshoot. So if you're having issues with sublimation, you just can't get it right, checking the temperature that, you set it to 400 degrees, but is it actually 400 degrees? Checking that temperature can eliminate that issue and let you move on to another problem that it might be with your sublimation process. So keeping a thermometer on hand is something I highly recommend. I also have tons of questions on how to size your design. So if I want a design for this mug, I wouldn't want to print a full 8.5 by 11 sheet because it wouldn't print on this. I would just want to print it to the size I want. So software to size your design. So a few ways you could do that for free is Cricut Design Space. You could use Canva, and I will link to both of those below. And then of course you can use other paid programs. Photoshop is one. I think you can maybe do it in Inkscape. But there are several programs on the market, but you will need some way on your computer to get your design the exact size you want for your particular blank. And a lot of these blanks, say I wanted to do this tumbler, the manufacturer might provide a template where I could get an exact template for exactly what I needed to go all the way around. And then you'll need to drop your image onto that template. You can do that in Cricut Design Space for free, as long as the image doesn't get too large for Design Space to handle. Or you can do that in a program like Photoshop. So just be aware of those. And I do have, I have a trick in the video that compares the mug press to the sublimation oven. I have a trick for using templates without a program, so you might want to check that out as well. And then in a future video, I'll be covering color correction. So that's a question I'm getting a lot as well, and I want to do a full video on it alone. Whether you need software to do that type of thing. So I'll be doing a full video on how to correct the color out of your printer to get the optimum colors possible. I'm doing a little bit of research on that and want to get it right with my printer before I tell you how to do it. And then finally, I know I have a ton of people out there that love a hard copy book to learn something. They want a manual, they want to print something, and found this book on Amazon, ordered it. It is a super comprehensive guide to sublimation. So it is called The Road to Sublimation Success. It does talk about a lot about sublimation for business, which is great. If you want to start a business with sublimation, it's perfect. If you don't want to start a business, I would just skip those parts about pricing and that type of thing and just move on to the nuts and bolts of how to get started with sublimation, how to sublimate a variety of items. It is super comprehensive, and I really think that if you're looking for a manual for sublimation, this is the one to get. So this one is from a company called Condi, and they are like really a leader in the sublimation space, and a lot of these products come from them. So I'll be linking to them quite a bit. I bought this book on Amazon though, and I'll give you the Amazon link in the description below. So I think that's about it. If you have any questions, so maybe I missed a thing you need for sublimation, maybe you have a question about one of the things I showed, please drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you like this video, helped you a little bit, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos like this every week on Cricut, crafts, sublimation, and I know you're gonna love those, so you'll wanna hit that subscribe button. And I just want to repeat that once again, I'll have links for everything in the description below. So there's a description below this video, and sometimes you have to click like show more on the computer or a couple buttons on if you're on mobile to actually see that description, but it'll be long and there'll be several links within it to all of these products for you to go and check out. So hopefully that helps you get started on your sublimation journey, and I want to thank you all for joining me this week, and I'll see you next week with another great video. Thanks y'all, bye-bye.